and the arrangement. Yes. So I'm going to talk about 3 core strategies for leading in complexity. So hopefully there will be some practical things to think about when we are in a complex environment. As Miles said, I work in Stockholm in Sweden. I work at a company called CRISP. So we're a consultancy working with leadership, organizational development, and a lot of product development and agile organizations. I have a background as an engineer. I started out with engineering. I quite quickly got a big team to lead. And one day I realized at work that I tried to manage my team, and it didn't go that well. And basically, no one in the team had the right amount of work to do at any point of time. Either was too little, too much, and I tried to just manage. At the same time, I was really into sports. I was playing and coaching volleyball. So basically, all my free time I spent in the sports arena. And I realized, what if my work team was my volleyball team? Then we had been kind of smoked in 30 seconds. Because of volleyball, you really have to collaborate, help each other. If you touch the ball, you cannot touch it the second time. So when you make a mistake, someone else have to rescue you, basically, and they have to help you without thinking about it, just throwing yourself after the ball. Do we do that at work? Not really. And then I started to introduce and see them as my team, and then I got fantastic results. So that led me into coaching. And this, I typically say that I'm not only old as a coach. Nowadays, coaching is everywhere. But then coaching was quite new, professional coaching. So I went into professional coaching, leadership development. And that's kind of my journey. So I've focused a lot on the soft or leadership parts of organization and product development. So luckily, Sonia had a fantastic talk yesterday talking about complexity. And she had these nice sandboxes, the ordered one and the one messy one. And I had another metaphor here. It's like a car where things are complicated, but it's kind of ordered. You know how it works, etc. It's predictable versus complexity, where things are just naturally constantly moving, constantly in flux, constantly changing. And things are changing faster and faster. So it's quite funny when I'm teaching a course for product managers, and in that course we have a case study. And in the case study, the product managers are going to work with a fictional travel agency. So I teach that course maybe 3-4 times a year. But every time I have to update the case. Like the situation is totally different. Like it's pandemic, things are closing down. You have to now innovate, create products for kind of handling that situation. Next time I have the course, I have to rewrite the whole kind of case story, because now it's open, now everyone wants to travel, but now you can't even get a passport because congestions at airport, etc. So I have to rewrite the case. And then 3 months later, now there are wars and energy crisis. I have to rewrite the case. So it's amazing how change is just going quicker and quicker, right? But you can be assured change will never go as slow as today again, right? And it will accelerate. So that's why leading in complexity is important, to have some strategies on how to manage this complexity. But also there's some frustrations around it. So this is what we often hear, or what I've heard from clients. So who can relate to this? Feeling overwhelmed by all the demands? Anyone? Being caught in the middle, juggling multiple bosses and conflicting priorities. Has that happened to you too? Perceiving a lack of support when faced with decision-making amidst competing priorities. Yeah. Every day only, okay. Balancing personal responsibility with dependencies on others. You have a lot of dependencies, yes. Struggling to cope with numerous simultaneous changes, many change initiatives at the same time. Anyone? Yeah. So probably you have your own kind of complex challenges, but so how do we handle this? And I kind of figure out that you need to work on 3 levels: the individual one, the team or the we, as we heard today, and the collective organizational one. But there is a kind of big gap here. As leaders, we kind of get this intellectually. We understand this. Oh yes, it's complex, it's changing. I cannot use traditional command and control, it doesn't work. I have to do something else. So we think we know this, how to handle this, but actually, kind of in our in our teaching and learning, education, management theories, and our past successes kind of trick us into knowing always what to do. And also now we think we know really how to just handle the complexity. But that's a kind of a bigger gap than we think. So be mindful about the gap. And today I'll share a bit of suggestions for how to cross the gap. So there's one part then of what can you do yourself? So this kind of personal development or self-leadership. So going from just seeing small connections to more systems. Then the we part, the collaboration part. And I like this picture of it's kind of, for me, using the collective intelligence is about connecting your minds, but also your hearts, kind of leveraging the knowledge and skills that we have. And thirdly, releasing complexity. So I'll go into these 3 areas. So often this is a picture of kind of mapping up processes in the organization. It's really complex, right? So going into the first part, self-development. That is the first strategy to be good at this. And there's actually 2 parts to it. One is kind of developing, growing, and another one is relearning, as from this book here, Unleash Your Complexity Genius. So I'll go into those 2 parts. So first of all then, what can you do to grow yourself? And it's about acquiring skills, but there are 2 types of skills. One is like horizontal, is knowing more about technical topic. And another one is about how you know things. So that's kind of the growing part. And Robert Keegan, he talks about knowing more about the technical thing is good, but that's kind of filling up your cup, like pouring in more knowledge. But there is another part where you actually have to expand your cup. And those typically we talk about as technical challenges, technical problems versus adaptive challenges. And as a leader, you often have adaptive challenges. Those are even difficult to define. So like ill-defined challenges. This also comes from Robert Heifetz at Harvard. So the complex ones are often what we are challenged with. So here we need to grow as persons. So what can you do then as to grow as a person? And Heifetz has this kind of very nice metaphor. Either you're on the dance floor, or if you can step out and be on the balcony, kind of watch out on the dance floor. So this is taking a perspective on your situation, kind of looking at yourself and stepping out of what you're doing. That is basically what reflecting is about. So when I teach and do a lot of leadership courses, there's participants are quite at the end annoyed about all these reflective exercises. But I tell them that's their gym exercise. For a leader, reflection is basically the most important muscle. So thinking about your thinking, stepping out of the current. Another important one is perspective taking. So you might have perspective on something, but if it's complex, there's not one way. There's different hypotheses, different ways to see things. So you need to take other perspectives. So there's one skill kind of identifying what are these perspectives that I need to bring in. And then after that, also a skill to bring them in. A third skill is self-mastery. So when things are in flux, changing, it's easy to be reactive. Like we had an example yesterday from traffic, like you're cut off, you're reacting. But what's the best kind of action instead to be intentional about the outcome that you want? So if you have some self-mastery or composure, that's really important. So then you can, if you're still calm in the midst of the storm, you can act intentionally. And often what kind of drives us is fears. And if you're just jumping then into being reactive, you don't get the best outcome. So a key here is kind of notice that trigger and be curious about it. I'm feeling unconscious or uncertain about this. So there's some fear here. Wonder what's behind that. And then you can be in a more creative mode. And then if you're creative mode, you can work with intentions or aspirations. So not just reacting to what is, but creating the reality that you want to share. And creative conversation. So it's in complexity, it's about learning and listening with others and seeing the system around us. So basically, this is our program that we teach in leadership development, but I'll just mention them as a kind of taster here for you. So that's the part of growing up or becoming more wise, seeing more things, be able to look further and broader. But there's another thing kind of which is actually going down and relearning and looking inwards, because complexity is not new. We have had it forever, basically. We lived in a nature which is complex, right? So this kind of another Harvard professor here, Jennifer Berger, she has a new fantastic book about also kind of relearning, reconnecting to what we already knew as humans. And she talks about how our different nervous systems kind of are in interplay with each other and works normally fine. So we have the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. And the sympathetic is more when we go into action or flight or fight, or we have to do something, which is fine in many situations. But the parasympathetic, where we have to stop, reflect, and we can relax and then have ideas coming to us. But often we're stressed at work, right? And if you go into stress mode, you're activating the sympathetic nervous system, and you kind of in the action, you get more of a tunnel vision. But if you're facing a complex problem, there was not one answer. There's not one way to do things. So you need to kind of step out and open up and be able to be more creative. Also, this goes for creativity in general. So to the right there, actually, it's my wife walking outside Stockholm in the forest, in nature. We like taking walks in nature. That is one way to kind of reset the nervous system. Another one is laughter or fun. I like also breathing from my sports background. If I got nervous at playing, just can stop, take a big breath. You can't really be stressed out and just having a nice breath. When I do coaching with coaching clients, I always start my coaching sessions with kind of taking 3 breaths together. And I experimented with this. When I don't do it, we're not as present. So that kind of opens up for more creative ideas. One client recently said that, I was a bit annoyed when you asked me to breathe with you for three breaths. I didn't have time with that. But after taking 3 breaths, I kind of landed and say, oh, that was so good. And what was I thinking? So you can try that at meetings or with clients or for yourself. So that is kind of reconnecting to what you already know. You have skills to handle complexity. Okay. So that was what you can do on an individual level. So we had before here, we had the me, we, and the system, right? So now we are at the collective level. And here is really harnessing the collective intelligence by the people you have around you. So if it's complex, there is not one person with all the answers. You have to really crowdsource all the ideas that you need. And I think one role model for this is Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft. He says, don't be a know-it-all, be a learn-it-all. And I think it's quite good coming from a CEO saying that I don't have all the answers, I don't know, but I need to learn, right? And he also got really inspired by the book Mindset by Carol Dweck. Talked about the open mindset, growth mindset. So he has introduced that throughout the whole Microsoft. And I don't know if that book and his ideas, but the stock price went up after he took over. So, okay, collaboration. Everyone wants collaboration. Okay, we understand that it's important, but we're just using the word in general. We don't really think about what collaboration is, according to my experience anyway. So this model from Bonita Roy kind of shows different types of or levels of collaboration. So at the bottom there, you have coercion. And on that x-axis is the power balance. So to the left, it's very low power balance. So if you have power over someone, you can coerce someone, right? But if you're forced to do something, what's the performance? Not so good, typically not. Maybe if it's small, maybe simple task, but typically not. Then compliance. So compliance is that you're doing it because of, okay, my manager told me to do it, I better do it. Or my project leader seems very stressed about this, best I do it. Or they told me delivery is 14th of September, so maybe I have to do it then. And what I think is that we hopefully don't have the coercion or compliance often at work. At least in Sweden also is quite flat. There's not so much power distance in organizations. So I was thinking that doesn't happen often. But actually, if you think about it, many of kind of inspirational speeches from managers and so on are often kind of to sell something, right? It's not really to engage or enroll others. Often it's selling. We have to do this now. And it comes across as like the manager's problem. We talked about, yes, Jadina talked about the ego versus love. So ego coming from that, they have to do this and kind of selling it, and people feel a bit compliance to do it. Next level is coordination. And here we are coordinating, but we're kind of working individually, but we have dependencies, so we need to coordinate work, which is fine in some cases. Cooperation is actually more helpful. So I'm helping you, but I assume you will help me later. It's a little bit of a transactional thing. So it's that the coordination, cooperation is what's happening most in organization, but it's not really true collaboration, and it's not really what you need to solve complex problems. So if you have complex problems, you need more of a true collaboration, where you actually are working together, getting the synergy, getting all the perspectives together, and innovating together. And then there's the highest part here is co-creation. And this when really kind of creativity flows, when your ideas is building on someone else's, and at the end you have just something new has emerged. One example is sometimes when we create a new kind of course or a program, me and some colleagues where we are working and we're saying some things, and I take that idea, build up on it, I take some notes here, and whoops, voila, we have a fantastic kind of program or a course, but we didn't know really who said what and where it came from, etc. It was kind of emerged in the movement. So that's kind of really this creativity where 1 + 1 is 3, right? But at organizations, we are not really working on the collaboration and co-creation, in my experience. We are often on a lower level. And sometimes it's fine if you have really concrete tasks that you can kind of isolate and divide. But often when it's complex, you need multiple perspectives. So if it's complex, okay, I cannot solve this by myself. So I'll ask then someone who has another perspective, for example. So I need to go to a colleague, and then who are you are busy at work? Are you busy at work? Anyone? Yes. Okay. So if I have a problem and I need different perspectives, are you available to help me right now? No. Can I schedule a meeting with you? When is your next free meeting time? 2 weeks time. Okay, great. So it goes 2 weeks, and then we have a meeting, and then we say, oh, this was complex. Maybe we should have brought in marketing for this as well. Okay, so now we need marketing person. Any marketing person here? Yes. Are you busy at work? Okay, so when can we have a meeting with you? November. Okay. Are you available in November? Check maybe. Okay, so in 4 weeks time we have the three of us and 3 perspectives to solve a complex problem. Probably not. We need some operational person, etc. And so maybe we can solve this in 2-3 months, maybe. But what do we do while you're waiting for the meeting with me? You're doing something else, right? And while I'm waiting for the meeting with you, I'll start something else. And if it's not a simple task that I can manage like isolated, I need other people to join me on that as well. So then it goes the same story again. So eventually I have multiple threads, like multiple balls in there. None is resolved. Everything is taking very long time. Because it's taking so long time, I have to have a lot of documentation. Every time we meet, we basically have to restart the meeting. So we are actually just on the coordination level. We are coordinating each other. So how many of you have been to like coordination meetings, sync meetings? Yeah, so the sync meetings, I think, and do you like them? No. So the problem is that we are creating sync meetings to coordinate complex issues rather than actually collaborating. You follow? So instead, why not really collaborate? These are a couple of different teams I worked with. And the definition I like is comes from mob programming, or is also called software teaming by Woody Zool. He says that true collaboration is the whole team work on the same thing at the same time in the same space. And ideally also only with one computer. Anyone heard of that or tried that? A few nods? Tried it? Yes. So typically it sounds like it would go slower, but you don't have to have that meeting calendar game. You don't have all that waiting. You don't have all those balls up in the air, and you actually are solving and learning about the different areas and can be creative. So one team here is the Volvo Cars team doing the e-commerce platform for ordering cars online. You used to have to go to a Volvo dealer, but they are innovating, coming up with how you order it online. The WOW is an internet operator, so they had different departments, and we got them all these different departments together to kind of take decisions together immediately. The advanced team there is a finance team. They came up with a super innovative idea, but it had a lot of legal risk, marketing questions. Can we build it? Can we sell it? Is it legal? How do we finance it? But they came together to create together a viable solution that was really excellent for users, but also viable for the business and didn't take too much risk, and also, of course, legal. But imagine if you have to go to one department at a time with that idea. When you come back, probably the whole idea is killed, right? And the team to the right there, they open up the whole management team. So the management team were thinking that, oh, we don't really want to be the management team. Then all employees are looking to us for management decisions. We want to crowdsource the best ideas. So They created a management or leadership space and visualize all the company data on the walls, sales, improvements, economy, everything. And employees could come and participate in decision-making regarding strategic areas. And I'll show you just a short clip of the Volvo Cars team for you to get the feel of the kind of energy in that collaboration.
But I can see how on the phone that would be a little bit difficult to have all on one screen.
Is there sound?
Okay, that was really interesting.
That was the most useful.
So you have the marketing person. This is the marketing person. To the left is the product manager. To the right is the user researcher. You have software developers. And that's the team leader.
I'll invite you to sit separately in collaboration as well. So you can send your stuff to.
So basically, you have all the competence needed to solve the problems that you're facing. So they work really well together. Another kind of example is from this telecom operator, Telenor. So they had a tricky B2B subscription activation workflow that was a lot of manual work, and they wanted to automate it. But that one had been postponed for a very long time because the assumption was that to solve this, to automate this, it involved all the different departments. And that would take so long to kind of do this. But when they actually got together, it took half a day to do it. And the assumption was it would take weeks or months, so it had been kind of postponed. But when they actually talked to each other, they solved it in half a day. So imagine trying to fix that. That's sync meetings, right? It would make the whole organization busy for weeks. Probably that was true. But if you put them just in the same room, it took them half a day. Okay, now we're going to the organizational level. So what can you do looking at organization? So we talked about what you can do as an individual, what you can do with collaboration more on a team level, but what can you do at organizational level? And here we talk about releasing complexity. We talk a lot about simplification, but releasing implies that it's not reductive. You don't lose anything. You can untie things. And I have here Yves Morieux. He has a fantastic TED talk about how we are building bureaucracy, increasing complexity in organizations. So he researched 500 companies, I think, going back to 1955, and he saw that the external complexity have increased 6 times in that time. But actual response in organizations is 35 times more complicatedness, like kind of artificial complexity built into the organizations, adding more process, more rules, more meetings, more controls. I had one management team that they realized they had gone from 15 to 35 controls and realized that maybe that was not the best way to handle complexity with more control. And also there's research showing that when cities grow, the productivity per individual is increasing, but when companies grow, the productivity or the profit per employee is reducing. And when I come into organizations, often they say things are going too slow. Oh, okay, interesting. So let's look at how you're working, and you get this really complex analysis. There's so many handovers, so many roles, so many process steps. And this is kind of trying to visualize dependencies. So, and this is after kind of improving the team structure. So the vertical lines are different teams, but still, when they looked, they had so many dependencies, they couldn't be responsible for something by themselves. So I call this organizational debt. Maybe you've heard of technical debt in product software development. We often talk about technical debt. So technical debt is a consequence of poor engineering where you kind of postpone the quality for later. But I believe that it's the same happens in organizations. We are kind of building a debt of things that we need to fix later. And actually, there's also correlation between how the organizational structure is set up, and if you're in a product development company, also how the product looks like. So if you have a middleware group, now they will create the middleware stack, a software part, etc. I've seen it a lot. So there's research on this. So the product reflects the organizational structure. So these are examples of this extra bureaucracy that you're building up, extra process, committees, reports, meeting, handovers, etc. So what can you do? One kind of inspirational is Elon Musk companies. And this is a story where he come to the Neuralink, where they are going to connect to the brain, to computers basically. So when it comes to visit them, the engineers have come up with an idea of 4 implants in their brain, thousands of connections, and the router behind the ear. And after like 2 minutes of silence, it says, that's too complex. There's no physical law saying that you have to have that many kind of components. Make it simple. And if you haven't read the book, I can really recommend it. I counted the words delete. It occurs 53 times. So he basically goes around just challenging, delete the processes, delete everything, because we're adding things. When we have a problem, we typically think that that's a role, we need a function for this, we need a process for this. But if it's complex, doesn't help with more controls. We need better collaboration, right? And the algorithm that he's using in all these companies, question every requirement. So every requirement is dumb. Make it less dumb. Question everything, and every requirement have to have a name, so you can go back to the source and really make sure that you're doing the best thing you think you're doing. Secondly, delete any part and process, and then simplify, improve speed, and at the end, what's left you can automate. And we're teaching some of these classes as well, and basically what they're doing is digital self-management. Self-management hasn't really worked so often maybe in the past, but now that you have democratized kind of information, and you also have AI helping to prioritize, you have everything visual, where to work, where is the biggest return on investment, what's the economy of things, where do we invest? And also they use a lot of modularity, so that it's like Lego pieces. You can have teams responsible for one component, innovating and not depending on others. And I'm going to show a short clip here of another client that changed how they were working with their management team to an enabling team.
Sometimes you forget is that you obviously, if you change the culture, if you change the structure, that there is a key part that you also need to look into, and that's been the leadership. And we have moved away from really controlling, planning, to really empowering and experimentation, and obviously the leadership needs to follow that. So this will be, before I'm moving into what kind of impacts have we seen, I will just say the big change around the leadership. So we were in the former management team, there were a lot of things that were escalated. That was, I would say, not the normal way, but a quite common way to get some key decisions pulled through. Team were there to present and share on a regular basis, and we were seen as the management team members as the experts. We were very internally focused. There was no or very few customer visits as the management team. We had bi-monthly, very long meetings with packed agendas, and it was decision after decisions, and these were happening behind closed doors. So we said, is this really what an agile organization and an empowered organization should have? So we said, no, that can't be true. So we flipped the whole idea of how we want to operate. So we are now called the enabling team. There is no escalation at all to enabling team today, but obviously individuals can ask for support or guidance, but more on their own request. We are regularly, a bit more struggle now in COVID situation, but we are very regularly out meeting customers as a team or on our own We have monthly half-day meetings, so much less meetings, where we purely focus on learnings and how we can contribute even better to the organization. And we have our meetings in open areas, and obviously we're now doing it virtual, but we share the agendas, we share the outcomes, we share the decisions, and we really believe that this helps the organization to feel empowered and that the decisions are taken as close to the customer as possible. And self-leadership is now a way to operate.
Yeah, so this Roche Sweden, a medical company, traditional, but changing then the total leadership culture. So before they had people going to the leadership team to report. You heard that the meetings were endless with decisions, and people were intimidated to come and report to the management team for decision making, and it totally flipped. So there's basically no more decision making, shorter meetings, and the leadership team was there just for, or they call them enabling, for support, and the whole kind of culture changed. Another example is looking at this financial team. Then we just mapped out number of or the workflow for opening an account and depositing like $1,000, and it basically was 2 weeks of time. And there was so many dependencies, we have to use a job to kind of visualize all the handovers. And when people saw that system in the room, they immediately started collaborating across departments and visiting and speeding things up. So yes, there's so many things. Typically, really engaging hackathon, so to say, to see how can you hack your organization. But centralized decision power, what can you do? Yeah, so push the authority to information, like the Roche team there, collaborative decision making, or using advice process, not having the management to do all the decision making. We often have formal roles, static roles, handovers. So instead, more dynamic and collaborative. Central staff functions, well, see what people need and have them pull. Rather than focusing just on profit or deliverables, focus on the actual value of things. Budgeting, you can hack that. We had Boknes beyond budgeting, but yeah, making economy more transparent and people take better decisions. Reporting is typically a waste as well. All those kind of structures we can question. It's important to have structures, but just the kind of right amount for the work to be done. Okay, thanks. That was it. That was the 3 levels of how to handle and work with complexity. On the individual level, what you can do yourself, on a team, and then how to reduce or release complexity on the organization. And also on the organizational part there, the man-made complexities that we have compared to the complexity in nature is often much more stressful. Like if there's a nature catastrophe or something, people can deal with it because something that happened. But someone enforces more rules and controls or make work more complicated, as typically much more stressful. So see how you can unwind that and remove it. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much, Marco.